Hello, my friends. Today we'll be looking at basically the DNA results of a Neolithic period Baltic hunter-gatherer. I said the Neolithic period, and that might confuse people because people typically associate these European hunter-gatherers with the Mesolithic, but this is actually a Neolithic period hunter-gatherer. So he coexisted in Europe at the same time that there were the LBK culture and various Neolithic groups in the center and the west of Europe. So he coexisted with these farmers in Europe, but he was a hunter-gatherer. Actually, I say he, it's a she, it's a female. Her mitochondrial haplogroup is U4, and let's check this here. Yeah, it's U4A1. So the spreadsheet is indeed correct. It is matches up with what I see with James Lick mitochondrial haplogroup predictor. And now let's go ahead and see what she scores for the ethnic calculator. Actually, let's show you the G25 breakdown of her ancestry first. What's interesting about this particular Baltic hunter-gatherer, she's very different from the rest of Baltic hunter-gatherers. She's different because she's very Eastern. She has a lot of ancient North Eurasian ancestry. Most of the other Baltic hunter-gatherers are reversed. If you reverse the Afontova Gara 3 and Villa Bruna, you get the typical result of a Baltic hunter-gatherer. In her case, she's very atypical, she's very Eastern. She's more similar to Eastern hunter-gatherers, actually, than she is to Baltic hunter-gatherers. Definitely very interesting that she's so Eastern. And Baltic hunter-gatherers in general, just to give you a little bit of a disclaimer, or I guess explanation. In general, they are mostly derived from the Western hunter-gatherers, and only a minority of their ancestry comes from the ancient North Eurasians. In her case, the majority of her ancestry, as you can see, 63.8% of her ancestry comes from the ancient North Eurasians, and roughly one third of her ancestry comes from the Western hunter-gatherers. So in her case, she's very, very Eastern. She has a lot of ancient North Eurasian ancestry. And she also has 4% of Anatolian hunter-gatherer or southern ancestry. So she actually has some southern admixture as well, which we can see in the form of Pinarbasi hunter-gatherer from Anatolia. Definitely a very interesting sample. Let's see what she scores with my ethnic calculator. Here, based on 414 SNPs, she's closest to Belbekers from Britain. And the closest models for her is Yamne plus North Germanic, or Toland's warrior from Germany plus Afontova Gara 3, AG3. So this is not a very good calculator, and you can't really get a good estimation with 414 SNPs. Also, my calculator isn't really made for these ancient samples, especially from Europe. European hunter-gatherers lose a lot of their unique drift with my calculator. They end up being very similar to actual modern Northern Europeans. So because of that little quirk of my calculator, it's not very good at showing the specific Northern European drift that was present in the European hunter-gatherers. Nonetheless, this is what she scores with my calculator. Let's go ahead and check what she looked like. Let's look at the Nashakot calculator results section and see what kind of phenotype she had. So it looks like she's got brown eyes. Hazel eyes are also quite possible for her. By the way, this is also very unusual for Baltic hunter-gatherers to have brown eyes. It's uncommon for them. Most of them had lighter eye colors. But also we have to keep in mind that she's not a typical Baltic hunter-gatherer. She is very much an outlier in her ancestry. For hair color, she likely has black hair. Once again, very unusual for Baltic hunter-gatherers, but also keep in mind she's an outlier individual. Her ancestry is not that of a typical Baltic hunter-gatherer. So brown eyes and black hair and light brown skin, actually definitely very dark in pigmentation. Very, very interesting. And for the hair texture, it looks like she's got wavy or straight or curly hair. Probably not kinky hair, but most likely it's wavy or straight or curly. Although the highest percentage is actually wavy hair. And for coloring related variations found in the file, she has heterozygous genotype for blue eye haplotype 3, heterozygous for blue eye haplotype 2, and heterozygous for blue eye haplotype 1. So she does carry the variations. She does carry the variants for light pigmentation in OCA2 and HERC2 region. However, she is heterozygous for them, which means she also carries a dark color variant in all of these blue eye haplotype 1, 2, and 3. Um, okay, she does not have light skin, hair, and eyes, eye color variants in SLC45A2. Very interesting. She does not have hunter-gatherer, blue eyes, and pale skin and red hair variants in IRF4. Also very interesting. Most hunter-gatherers have 2 or 1 hair. In her case, she does not have any light color variants in this variation. And she does not have any light color variants in any of the ginger variants of MC1R. All right, pretty good. Let's check the phenotype oracle and see what phenotypes she might resemble most. So the closest phenotype to her is this, followed by this, followed by this. Keep in mind that it's, even though she's from the Baltic region and she's from Latvia, even though that's the case, I can show you where she's from in case I haven't. I think I haven't. So this is where she's from. So even though she's from this region, and she's a hunter-gatherer, she's actually very different from the rest of Baltic hunter-gatherers. She's an Eastern hunter-gatherer, so she has affinities to various South Asian groups and all of the other affinities that Eastern hunter-gatherers typically have. So that's why phenotypes like this even show up among the closest to her. And she's actually getting modeled. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was talking about. So you see with the oracle, with the phenotype oracle, the closest mixture for her is a mixture of 50% this plus 50% that. That's because of the Eastern hunter-gatherer ancestry, because she's not genetically she's not really a Baltic hunter-gatherer, and phenotypically she's also not really a Baltic hunter-gatherer. She's much darker and she's much more exotic looking. There's the facial morphology oracle, which I don't really want to. It's kind of difficult to explain what this is. So I'm not going to. But that's what she scores for the two-way mixed mode for the appearance. All right. Now let's check what she scores for the biomarkers panel. I added a new biomarker yesterday, by the way. I was doing a lot of programming. So it looks like she has below average levels of vitamin D. She looks like she's got slightly above average levels of LDL cholesterol, slightly above average levels of HDL cholesterol. Looks like she's got slightly below average levels for glucose. So actually really good to see, except for the higher levels of LDL cholesterol. This is all really good to see. And lower levels of vitamin D also is kind of unfortunate. She's got pretty much spot on typical average level of hemoglobin. She's got slightly below average blood pressure, which is really good to see. She's got slightly below average level of iron in the blood, so she probably does not have any hemochromatosis variants. So that's definitely very good to see, because the hemochromatosis variants play a big role in this expected level of iron in blood panel. For sex hormone binding globulin, looks like she's got slightly above average levels for that as well, which is also really good. And for red blood cells, looks like she's got slightly below average level of red blood cells in the blood. So also kind of within the normal and healthy range. This is what I added yesterday, by the way. This is the part that I added yesterday. Now let's check her polygenic risk scores, what predispositions she has to various conditions. Looks like she's got higher than average odds for vitiligo, higher than average odds for myopia, slightly below average odds for primary biliary cirrhosis, slightly below average odds for stroke, above average odds for male pattern hair loss, which is not surprising because she's a European, or like I guess West Eurasian, and West Eurasians in general tend to have higher odds for male pattern hair loss. Looks like she's got higher than average odds for atrial fibrillation, slightly below average odds for deep vein thrombosis, slightly below average odds for bipolar type 1, spot on average odds for schizophrenia, uh, above average odds for type 2 diabetes. She's got a slightly below average odds for Alzheimer's. It looks like she's got a slightly below average odds for multiple sclerosis. And for breast cancer, she's got 2 risk variants out of 12, which is pretty typical. For testicular cancer, 3 risk variants out of 10, which is once again pretty typical. For celiac disease, actually that's really low actually. So actually kind of good, really good result. For celiac disease, 4 risk variants out of 10, which is also typical. For GSS, no risk variants at all, and nothing was found. For Crohn's disease, 7 risk variants out of 16, which is actually kind of bad. So for Crohn's disease, we want to look at the result once we scroll through the monogenic traits and see what she's got what risk variance she's got for Crohn's, because 7 risk variance is kind of unfortunate for Crohn's. 0 risk variance for Raffenstein's out of 6, and 3 risk variance for Parkinson's out of 16, so that's pretty good as well. So the only thing we really have to watch out for is Crohn's. We're going to look at it a little bit later. So for the mental health results section, this is something I added just yesterday once again. So she most likely has less or intermediate number of dopamine D2 receptors and not higher. This panel is based on the genotypes that follow it. So if you look at the genotypes that follow it, these all have to do with DRD2. And depending on the quality of your file, you might have more, you might have less. But there's basically a calculation that goes on, and it determines what predispositions you most likely have, higher or less dopamine D2 receptor sites. So in her case, she most likely has less or intermediate number of dopamine D2 receptor sites. It looks like she's got most likely intermediate levels of empathy. By the way, this is based on these 4 variations right here. So she most likely has intermediate level of empathy. Wow, that's really cool. This was probably a really good idea to add this, and I'm gonna make this for other traits as well. Okay, for the G6PD gene panel, it looks like she's got 1 risk variant for G6PD deficiency in this variation. If she's a male, then this is a miscall, but if it's a female, then hemoglobin value might need adjusting for diabetes diagnosis. So she's actually a little bit predisposed to diabetes based on her genotype here. Definitely very interesting. It's very uncommon. Okay, for Alzheimer's, I don't think she was scoring high for Alzheimer's, so we don't care about that. She's not a carrier for the hemochromatosis mutation. All right, that's really good to see. We saw a pretty high score for vitiligo. So yes, this is why the score for vitiligo is kind of high. It's because she has risk variance for vitiligo in the HLA gene. So because of that, she's scoring kind of high for vitiligo. But it's kind of a really uncommon condition. So scoring a little bit higher than average for that is not that big of a deal. It looks like she actually has a G genotype in this variation of EZAR. Wow, so she's actually got heterozygous genotype in EZAR. So she has one of the East Asian alleles for EZAR. That's very interesting. No micropenis and mix of muscle types, likely more sprinter than an endurance athlete. No fat gene variants in FTOs, RS99609, but she has heterozygous genotype in this variation of EZAR, which means likely has shovel-shaped incisors and either partial or full East Asian ancestry. And then she has AA genotype in this variation of EDAR, which leads to European facial traits, and it's very uncommon genotype for East Asians, typical for Europeans. So she actually has in one of the variations, she has a East Asian allele in EDAR. And I will remind you once again, EDAR is a gene that has to do with facial morphology of the teeth, skin, even hair texture. So this definitely matters quite a lot. She does not have any risk variance for familial Mediterranean fever. For cancer's panel, nothing very interesting here. I don't really want to talk about this. For rare diseases and traits panel, looks like she's got a genotype that predisposes her to rheumatoid arthritis and systemic sclerosis, and it's also a very uncommon genotype. She also has this genotype, which leads to a much higher risk for eosinophilic esophagitis, whatever that is. I can't pronounce that. Okay. For male pattern hair loss, definitely a lot of risk variance for higher odds for male pattern hair loss. She does have some genotypes that protect from male pattern hair loss, such as this, for example, or this. But for the most part, the tendency is that she has higher odds for male pattern hair loss. And I wanted to see Crohn's, but it looks like nothing relevant for Crohn's has been found. None of the 3 most important variations for Crohn's have been found in the file. So her score for Crohn's wasn't that big of a deal because none of these 7 risk variants that she scored are among the top 3 most important ones. For APOB gene panel, it looks like she does not have any risk variants for familial hypercholesteremia. So definitely very good. She's not predisposed to increased lipid levels. And for HIV and AIDS panel, it looks like she's got this genotype, which leads to a significant reduction in HIV viral load. Definitely very good to see. So she's even a little bit protected from HIV. For muscular dystrophy myopathies, no risk variance for any of that, so that's really good. For color blindness panel, no risk variance for color blindness, good to see. For syncope panel, it looks like she's got two variations. Two genotypes were found in the file, and based on those two variations, she's got a slightly increased odds ratio for syncope. For biotraits panel, let's see what we can determine here. She's got the genotype leads to higher predisposition to anger. She's got two copies of the hunter-gatherer CLTCL1 gene variant, which basically has to do with ability to process certain foods. So in her case, she's got a reduced ability to process carbs and sugars. Okay. I wonder if it actually has any like link to hunting and gathering versus being a farmer in terms of the lifestyle, because like ancient North Eurasian, Malta Boy was scoring two copies of the farmer variant. So I don't know if it's very ethnically linked. Maybe it is. Um. Okay, and is there anything else I want to talk about here? No, not really. For the blood group panel, she definitely has type O blood type. It's quite decisive. Every other blood type is sort of very unlikely. Type A is sort of likely, but it's still most likely it's type O. So that's what we can determine from this file, from her genetics. Thanks for watching my video until the very end. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Um, and you can download this file in 23andMe format from link which is in the description of the video. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.